You can include parentheticals for any pieces of information that you would like to show the audience. Now, to get a high score in this type of essay, there are two things that you have to pay close attention for, which this is part of criterion C of um, this piece of writing. One thing you should always take notice of is that you always have to show the image that you're writing in the piece. It has to be very clear to the examiner that you're talking about this specific image. So as you can see here, okay, we can see a car over here. And here it's already mentioned slick crimson racing car. We can already see the color, we can already see the object, we can see all that here. You can actually just see this throughout the entire piece of writing, deserted mountain. It's a possible location for this type of setting, really. There's also the night breeze. Just from the color and the darkness, you can tell it's occurring during nighttime. There's also roads were all pitch black. You can also see the shine did not seem to come from the car's headlights. So there's some kind of shine, but it's not from the car's headlights. You can also generally see that there's this lighting over here. So what I inferred was that there's a possibility that this light is coming from a different source. So some of these things you can infer on your own as long as it makes somewhat of sense. But generally what you should do is that here and there you should include sentences, descriptions that make it obvious that for the examiner to know which image that you have chosen without even knowing for a fact that you chose image 2. That's one thing. Another thing you should do is use a lot of literary features, which they already show here. What I like to focus on is the use of figurative language here and there to make it easier, to make it more interesting, to make it more imaginative, creative, easier for certain ideas to come across to the examiner. So actually here and there we can see a lot of figurative language. We can see his brand new slick crimson racing car, which is actually the usage of imagery in which we're describing what the car looks like. We're in the color and how new it is. And Nick tucked his head out the window. The night breeze was crashing onto his face, personification. You're giving life to a inhuman object, and you're saying it's crashing onto his face, making a complete mess out of his car. Nick goes breathing in and out. Oh, how nice. I always love the chilly breeze. Nick patted the outside of his car twice, as if he was cradling a child, as if he was raising a child. This is simile. So we can see that this car is really important to Nick just as a child. He feels as much attraction to the car as he would to a child. Nick's grinning widely. Nothing beats taking my partner on a ride. Now time to test his baby out. Nick placed pressure on his foot, placed on the brakes. However, the car did not slow down. It's not stopping. Click, click. This is onomatopoeia where you're using certain sounds to show what's happening. Nick continuously slammed his foot onto the brakes, but it was no good. The brakes would not budge. It was as if it had a mind of its own. Nick tilted his head down upwards and noticed the steep cliff waiting ahead of him. Everything, including the trees and the road, were all pitch black, and the cliff for some reason was sparkling. The shine did not seem to come from the car's headlights. This entire paragraph can be said to be imagery as well, as it was inviting me. Bracing for impact, Nick sheltered and curled his head with his hands, hoping for the best. A few moments later, not a sound could be heard. All that entered Nick's ears was the echoing screeching of crickets. So imagery can focus on not just sight, but all senses, sound, touch, feel, taste, all that. So this focuses on sound, whereas all the imagery previously used focuses more on sight. Nick's eyelids slowly woke up from their slumber, once again personification, talking about the eyelids, and fluttered open. There's a young boy in front of him. Introduction of another character. Whenever you have a screenplay, you always have to make sure there's a minimum of 2 characters. A dialogue can't really occur just from one character. There has to be a minimum of 2. So this is the introduction of another character. Excuse me, are you alright? And Nick replies, who are you? What happened? And Anthony, with tears in his eyes, goes, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. We were about to fall off, so I. Anthony's legs were vibrating, unable to stay still. Once again, imagery, he gulped his saliva, itching to cough out the words stuck in his throat. You can see generally the usage of vocabulary and descriptive words in order to kind of have a kind of increase the imagination of the reader to have a better idea of what's actually happening in the scene. This is really important as it shows your imagination, your creativity, and your ability to use literary devices to bring out your piece of writing, which will boost your Criterion C score. Nick pulled in Anthony's head and brought him closer to his chest, squeezing him tight. Don't be like that. You saved me. You have nothing to feel sorry for. Well, that car was brand new, but nothing I can do about that now. Nick propelled himself up and dusted off all the sand and rocks attached onto him. Limping, he moved his concrete foot forward, and Anthony followed suit. And just another notice, once again, you can see all the names are capitalized wherever they're noticed. This is something very important to include in just a screenplay specifically. Anthony and Nick started to walk along the sideway of the road, illuminated in blue from the blue moon. This is once again a description of the image itself. You can generally see it's blue in color. What I decided to say was that there's a blue moon and that's why the illumination occurred. The student is allowed to make they can infer anything from the image as they want, as long as it makes sense, as already mentioned. So that's what I decided to infer. The trees as tall as skyscrapers, once again, we see that there are many trees over here that are really tall. This is another way to prove which image we're choosing, because we know for a fact there are no trees or anything from image one. And again, this is also simile. You see the trees as tall as skyscrapers. Started to stand out with magnificent posture. Nick holding hands with Anthony. By the way, where are your parents? Did you come alone? And apparently Anthony was playing hide and seek with his sister, and he was told to hide, and he went too far from his parents. So Nick replied, and Anthony goes, and I ended up here. So this just means a continuation. It's something you include if it's a continuation of a character's dialogue. And Nick snapping his fingers, he thought, oh, Anthony must be a child from a mansion on the top of the mountain. This is a detail that I created on my own. Details like this are allowed to be created as long as it's not specifically shown that this detail is wrong from the image. They're the only people that live around this God-forsaken street. And Anthony's about to cry. Nick goes, no, wait, that's not what I mean. Sorry, kids, since you saved me, I'll take you up there. And Anthony fidgeting with his hands. This generally shows nervousness, and this is what I mean by characterization. You show something that makes each character seem different. Nick, although seems the calm and collected type, he's also a bit compassionate. When Anthony's feeling down, he retracts his words, and Anthony generally is playing around with his hands, about to cry. You can see his nervousness, and generally he's more prone to being sensitive. And Nick, my place is just down the mountain, don't worry. Nick faced away from Anthony, gauging the distance of the top of the mountain by squinting his eyes. Imagery once again, showing what he's doing instead of just directly telling the audience. Oh, it's not too far from here. Nick and Anthony started to make their way to the mountain, Nick trudging his feet along the way. And Nick goes, quite a distance, huh? By the way, I've been meaning to ask you, how did you pull me out of the car? I'm pretty sure I locked the door. Oh, but who knows? The years are getting on me. Right, kid? Silence engulfed the entire streets. The crickets that were once screaming at the top of their lungs all disappeared within a flash. Screaming at the top of their lungs can be considered a hyperbole, in which you're exaggerating the situation a bit. Anthony let go of Nick's hand. Nick's frantically searching for Anthony. And all of a sudden, Nick heard growling and panting from behind his back. He whipped his head around and saw it. Anthony's neck stretched and extended, protruding forward. His face was replaced by a skinless head, covered in cells all moving